Assassin's Creed Unity, a game based on the French Revolution, with a story plot featuring the love story of Arnaud Dorian and Elise de Serre. Since the game mostly concentrates on Arnaud Dorian and the whole assassins are number one thing, little is known about the character Elise de Serre, who surprisingly does have an interesting backstory, with many mysteries and secrets not shown in the game. Her backstory could also explain why she made the final decision to leave Arnaud behind to fight Jamais. So stick till the end to know the character of Elise de Serre. The year is 1768. Elise de Serre was born the daughter of François de Serre and Julie de Serre. Both parents, being high-ranking Templar agents, possessed high power and influence nationwide, thus making them crazy powerful and crazy rich, making Elise automatically not that short on the money side. But in spite of all the wealth and power, Elise's mother taught Elise never to be spoiled but be strong in heart and noble, and some kind of badass. As a result, Elise found it difficult to socialize with normal girls, who in this case liked playing with dolls and stuff like that. So instead she played rough and tough with the boys, which she was highly discouraged, making her some kind of a loner and a social outcast.
She's wearing. What do you expect? She's half savage.
I hear she spends her nights gambling in dockside bars. And that's the least of the rumors.
Honestly, I pity her father.
As a result, she spent more time with her mother, who toughened her up further by arranging secret sword-fighting lessons with one Mr. Weatherall, who I suspect had a past intimate relationship with her mother, but nevertheless would play a key important role as a fatherly figure to Elise. But all Elise's boredom was about to come to an end when she became the adoptive sister of Arnaud Victor Dorian, who at the time was orphaned by the hands of Shay Patrick Cormac. Her father, taking pity on Arnaud, adopts him. Arnaud and Elise would often play hide-and-seek, rough and tough in sword fights, and as a result, Arnaud became the only light in her life that she was truly free and happy with. But happiness came to a swift end, when one day Elise would discover that her mother had caught what I understood to be a disease, which would lead to a slow, painful end. Elise was most saddened by this, as she looked up to her mother the most, and to see her slowly degrade from the strong person she was pained her. But nevertheless, her mother continued serving the order by suppressing her weakness and providing wise support to François de Serre, who at the time was constantly pressured by his very own Templar agents to go all-out war against the assassins. If matters didn't get worse, France was in turmoil. The peasants were getting angry as they were suffering under severe drought and starvation, and the king and all the royalty were doing nothing but partying all night. The news of the crisis went international. Advisors were sent from other countries to try and advise François de Serre that the assassins indeed had a hand in all the chaos that was going on within the country. So the following day, the head of the English Templars, called the Carolls, who, according to me, were greedy, selfish, and had a massive number of mercenaries at their disposal, came along with their stinking daughter to meet up with François and Julie regarding solutions to make nationwide peace by destroying the assassins. And as usual, Julie put a hard stop on it, hence creating tensions with the Carolls. Even Elise, being only 6, raised hostility with their daughter May Caroll. In spite of all the tensions and serious atmosphere, Elise's mother had one hobby, or craze. She liked collecting and buying fancy shoes. So like usual, they headed out by carriage to buy a pair, but on doing so, something odd happens. They find their return carriage missing. As it was getting dark, Elise's mother decided they would make haste through a shortcut which would lead them straight home. But this was her horrible mistake. As they made their way through the shortcut, they were being stalked. To no surprise, their paths were blocked by 2 men, one dressed as a doctor and the other a deadly goon. The doctor flashed his assassin's blade, confirming to them that he was indeed an assassin. Trapped on all sides and with no way out, Elise's mother does something that would permanently change Elise into the fiery Templar we know her today. Before the doctor or the goon could make an attempt on their lives, Elise's mother cuts down the goon and seriously injures the doctor. But before Julie could get a hold on the doctor, he manages to escape, leaving just the both of them and a very inspired Elise. The occurrence made François pee his pants. If that wasn't bad enough, his fellow Templars, now presenting proof, pressed him harder to get rid of the assassins. But like always, Julie put a hard stop to it, concluding it might be the doings of a traitor within the order, and that the Templar order must instead focus on the finding and capture of the supposed assassin and question him for the truth. However, this decision didn't favor most of the Templar agents. All this left the 6-year-old Elise confused and full of questions like, who the hell were the assassins, and why did her father's own people constantly oppose him? Why are the assassins our enemies, etc., etc. When asked about this, she was told that she was too young and that all will be revealed one day. But since Julie's health was deteriorating rapidly, the parents decided to indoctrinate her to the Templar Order early on. It was here where all was finally revealed. She was told the reason she was brought up differently was because she is to be Templar Grandmaster one day. Okay. And that by following the Templar ways, she is to lead the Templar Order and make the world a better place. Okay. And that there exists a deadly strong opposition called the Assassins, who, unlike the Templars, believing in order and control, they believed in the total freedom of mankind. Okay. Arno is an assassin with terrifying, impressive skills that I'm personally fond of and would love the Templar Order to have, which means you have to indoctrinate him to the Templar ways. Is that understood? No! Even though she was fond of all the Templar ways, making Arno a Templar was something she didn't want to do, because Arno to her was an escape from all the serious duties and loneliness. I mean, what do you expect from a 6-year-old child? So she decided Arno stay immune to all the Templar secret and his assassin identity, making him just her plaything. Things weren't getting any better. Elise's mother was now getting closer to her time. Since she was most dear to Elise, made Elise most sorrowful. Even François kinda stopped showing attention her way, I guess in an attempt to escape reality. Instead, his attention was at Arno, who impressed him by showing great skills at hunting. But Julie, in her final moments, made Elise promise that when her time comes, Elise is to take her place and continue providing wise support to her constantly opposed father. Then, on the 17th of April, 1778, the great and strong Julie de Lisset died. The year is 1787. Elise, being a badass, quick to anger, and equipped with terrifying skills, was best suited to be a super spy, and definitely was not suited to study at Mansion Royal de St. Louis, school for ladies, to complete her education. So she did what any person in her description would do. And this aggravated the principal of the school, Madame Lavini, who often punished her by beating her up with a cane. While this only made things worse, Elise swore personal revenge against Madame Lavini and rebelled harder. It got so out of hand that she was now threatened of being thrown out of the school. François de Lisset, being far too busy at the time, could not tend to Elise all the time, so he instead sent the next best thing, in the hopes of delivering adequate punishment: Mr. Weatherall. Elise, on seeing him, broke down to tears. She cried and cried about how Madame Lavini was torturing her and how her life was hell. Feeling sorry for her, Mr. Weatherall instead tells Elise that he had a lead on the man who tried to kill her and her mother, and that indeed he was an assassin, more like ex-assassin, who is now laying low somewhere in England. Mr. Weatherall, leaving a side note, promising Elise that he would personally hunt him down by going to England. So Elise, being Elise, and increasingly curious, decided to leave Mansion Royal and go straight to England to aid Mr. Weatherall with the search. On arriving in London, she went to the only place she knew: the Carrolls, who for some reason welcomed her with open arms. But among them was a man who was both angry and surprised to see Elise. It was Mr. Weatherall, who immediately told Elise to go back to France. But the Carrolls, having some kind of schemy plan behind their smiles, told Elise could stay under the condition that she spy and recover letters from a very old lady named Jennifer Scott. Yes, Jennifer Scott, the daughter of the great pirate Edward Kenway and sister of Haytham Kenway. Elise, deciding the sooner she finishes the job, the sooner she could return searching for the mysterious killer, agrees with the plan. So using the alias Yvonne Alberte, visiting from France with her maidstress Helene, the both of them make their way to Jennifer Scott's place. Jennifer Scott, who was naturally surprised by all the sudden visiting by Yvonne Alberte, decided to send spies to France to confirm their identity. And sure enough, in 2 days, their cover was blown. With Helene held hostage, Elise saw no way out and confessed that she was here only to collect lost letters of Haytham Kenway. I guess seeing her honesty, bravery, and innocence, Jennifer decided to give the letters willingly. She also gave Elise the Templar cross, which once belonged to Haytham Kenway, which she would now wear on her hip throughout the game. On reading the letters, Elise saw a lot of wisdom Haytham Kenway was trying to convey in unifying the Templars and the Assassins. Elise, getting inspired by this, decided, as future Grandmaster, this was the one thing she was going to do for sure. But for now, she had to concentrate on the mysterious killer. According to Mr. Weatherall, he was hiding in a hotel next to the dockyards, and on arriving there, she saw him for the first time. A raggedy, smelly, unkempt man who looked like he had no aim in life. The killer reveals his name to be Mr. Rude Dog, who was hired only to kill her mother and then disappear. But just before Elise could know more, the Carol's men raided the place. Fearing that the Carols were here to kill Rudolph, Elise makes up her mind to let Rudolph escape, but also at the same time promising him that one day she would find him and press him for more answers. Right when Rudolph fled, the Carols and Mr. Weatherall entered the room. Mr. and Mrs. Carol and even their daughter, May Carol, was there too. Mr. Carol was furious on seeing Elise had abandoned her mission. So to prove she had indeed completed the mission, she handed over the letters to Mr. Carol, saying she read them and found great wisdom in the unification of the assassins and the Templars. But Mr. Carol, being a pro-Templar, simply took the letters and threw them in the fire, because according to him, assassins and Templars had been enemies long before recorded history, and that it should remain that way. Elise, being the final proof of the inner contents of the letters, had to, according to the Carols, be destroyed too. So the Carols decided Elise and May Carol, their daughter, have a duel with swords. But before May Carol could make any poisonous remark or moves, Elise stuck her short sword right through her mouth, sending her straight to the afterlife. You can guess what happened next. All hell broke loose. The Carols ordered their men to kill Elise and Mr. Weatherall. Since the both of them were seriously outnumbered, they decided to run away. But as they did so, Mrs. Carol fired a bullet which hit straight into Mr. Weatherall's leg. They evaded the Carols, finally using a chariot. With Helene already set to travel back to France, the three of them sailed back and went to the only place Elise could go at the time, Madame Lavigny's Mansion Royale. Seeing the sorry state of all the three, Madame Lavigny takes pity and even agreed for Jacques to get a doctor to tend to Mr. Weatherall's leg, who, after treatment, had his leg operated. Mr. Weatherall, knowing that his fighting days were over, gives Elise his sword. His sword is the sword we see Elise carrying with her throughout the game. As for Mr. Weatherall, he would spend his combat training days knife throwing. But for Elise, things were still not straightened out. She wanted to find out more about the killer Rudolph. So when she had word that Rudolph was now in France and for some reason was about to be executed, she wasted no time and on horseback went straight on a rescue arc. Being lucky again by narrowly escaping death, she rescued smelly Rudolph from the gallows and finally had him again. But on questioning him further, all he knew was that he was hired by someone he could recognize, but didn't know by name. Elise, distressed by the answer, gives Rudolph 6 months to return or be hunted down for more answers. The year is 1789. Elise is now about 21 years old, and this is where Assassin's Creed Unity officially begins. Remember all the fireworks party? This is where Elise's father decides Elise be initiated as Grand Master of the Templar Order. During the ceremony, she saw all her father's Templar agents, showing signs of great reluctant respect towards her. She even saw the head of the assassins, Mirabeau, with her father discussing peaceful terms. After the initiation was a party, and because she was a social outcast, she was naturally left out. But she was not to worry. A guy called Arno Dorian, who failed to deliver the letter that would save her father's life, and who broke into the palace and even broke a girl's heart on the way in, was going to bring great joy to her heart. But as we know, right after all that, Elise's father, François de la Serre, head of the French Templars, is killed, and Arno is blamed for this and taken to the prison of Bastille to await trial. The death of François de la Serre set Elise into a trance, especially when she found out Arno had failed to deliver the letter. She lay sad and depressed for months till a letter arrived from Mr. Weatherall, describing that she had to snap out of all the emotion thing, as she was losing her grip on the Templar Order. He also described that she would have to save Arno from the prison, as there was, according to his sources, an assassin who took an interest with Arno. Elise, remembering that bringing Arno to the Templar Order was her father's long wish, decided to put all hatred aside and save Arno. I did say the year was 1789. This was the time the revolutionaries came to new heights. They were to break into the prison of Bastille to acquire ammunition and gunpowder. This was game over for the prison guards, but game on for Elise. Elise decided she would use the revolutionaries as cover to break into the prison. On arriving at the scene, it was chaos, and after struggling her way in, she finally saw Arno with another man, who we would know as Belek. As she was far down and way out of earshot, her shouts for Arno fell on deaf ears, and before she could make it to the top, Arno performed the assassin's leap of faith and was gone. Now, just to see if there was an alternate story, I personally lay still on the edge of Bastille, and after long, only to assume it's the time any average person would take to make it to the top, I gave up and made a jump down. Was there something I missed? Let me know in the comments. Now Elise, feeling depressed that she lost her father and now Arno to the assassins, clouded her judgment. She went back to her home in Versailles and saw the whole place run down by revolutionaries. Moving to her mother's old room lay what she assumed to be 3 drunk men. Overcome by grief, she turned a blind eye to them and lay still on her mother's bed, when suddenly, to her surprise, all the 3 drunk men rose and moved to the door and drew their swords. They declared themselves to be killers sent by the Corolles to avenge their daughter's death. Even though she was taken on by surprise, stayed strong, and when she found a small gap of opportunity, killed them all. She even managed to put a large wooden plank through one of their eyes. And right after all the commotion, surprise, surprise, Stinky Rudolph comes in looking all concerned, saying that he was hired by a man people know to be the king of beggars, and that this man is impossible to find, at least alone. Elise, finding no other use for him, simply tells him to leave. Shortly after this is Arnaud's unwelcome appearance. It is here where she no longer finds any need to hold Templar or assassin secrets.
Suppose it was inevitable. You an assassin, me a Templar.
You?
Overcome by hatred for being somehow responsible for her father's death and at the same time feeling a sense of love, merely asks him to leave.
Please.
Overcome by more grief and sadness about all that had happened, she lay there drinking and sleeping for days. So one morning, a commanding voice woke her up saying, "Get up your ass." It was Mr. Weatherall. A sudden surge of joy by the fact that Mr. Weatherall, in spite of his crippled state, would come all the way from God knows where to save her, brought her back to life. Mr. Weatherall explained that because of Elise's absence in the Templar Order, this traitor who killed her father may have grown stronger and influenced her own people to his side. He told her that she would have to make a strong standing soon, or her influence over what's left of the Templar Order will be gone. So the plan was simple. On behalf of Elise, Mr. Weatherall arranged for a meeting with all the Templar agents at the Hotel de la Massy. Here, Elise was to state her claim by addressing the order and commanding them that treachery will not be tolerated, and that the mysterious traitor is to be found, tried, and executed. But, on arriving at the meeting, Elise was shocked to see the room was empty. Elise had walked into a trap. It didn't take long when enemy forces attacked Elise from all the sides. Even the angry revolutionaries, seeing Elise dressed as not one of their own, attacked her. But lucky for her, she managed to escape by jumping off a bridge and into a boat, breaking her ribs at the same time. As she lay injured and with a high fever, she swore she would find and kill the traitor herself, no matter the cost. After a lot of aid from Helene, Jacques, and Mr. Weatherall, she finally recovered. Wasting no time, she planned that if she wanted revenge, she needed allies, and allies she could trust. So using Mr. Weatherall's network, she contacted the only person she trusted within the Templar Order, Monsieur Lafreniere, the man who tried to warn her father on the night he was murdered. But unfortunately for Monsieur Lafreniere, he was assassinated by Arnaud after Arnaud mistakenly thought that he was somehow responsible for killing Elise's father. Unaware of all this, Elise had walked straight into another trap, but only this time she was lucky Arnaud came to her rescue. In spite of being an assassin and being kind of responsible for her father's death, Elise seeing Arnaud run and kill her enemies reminded her of her younger days. Feeling moved, she instantly absolved Arnaud of everything.
What's going on? Where is Monsieur Lafreniere?
He's dead.
What?
Go! I'll explain later!
Arnaud later explained that Elise could join him and together with the help of the assassins could hunt down the men responsible for her father's death. So Arnaud takes Elise to the assassin's hideout, where she meets a very suspicious Balek and the head of the assassins, Mirabeau. Because Mirabeau and Elise's father were friends, broadly speaking, and also the fact that the current Templar Order had a bloodthirsty, unknown leader left Mirabeau with no choice but to entertain Elise's demands. Later, Elise would find out from Arnaud about Thomas Jarmet, a man she once knew to be her father's lieutenant, who was kicked out of the order for his extremist actions and declared dead by many, but now was alive. On further investigating, Elise found the place Thomas Jarmet was hiding in. On analyzing the area, Elise had to conclude the Templar Order was now led by the extremist Thomas Jarmet. Being assaulted from every side, Arnaud commands Elise to escape and inform what they discovered to Mirabeau. But on arriving at Mirabeau's place, Elise found him dead. This was done by Balak to frame Elise, as he didn't like the whole idea of the assassins and Templars working together. This left Arno with no choice. As he loved Elise more than even the creed, he had to make a tough decision to kill Balak, his very own master, to save Elise. After all this came the killing of Madame Levert, a fight, then a chase, which would end with a romantic balloon ride, bringing Arno and Elise ever closer than before.
Going forward isn't necessarily an ending.
Elise,
But all this changed when Arno chose to protect Elise rather than kill Germain. This really enraged Elise, as she saw this as the only opportunity to kill Germain, and unlike Arno, was ready to risk her life to kill him.
You think you'll be so careless now, knowing how close at heel we are? You were given a golden opportunity to end his life, and you refused to take it.
To save your life?
It isn't yours to save.
What are you saying?
I'm willing to risk everything to put Germain down. If you don't have the stomach for revenge, then I don't need your help.
Elise. Elise!
When Mr. Weatherall found out that Elise went after Germain without his knowledge, it also enraged him, which was only normal because as of now, Thomas Germain was declared Templar Grand Master with all the support of his Templar agents, and if Elise, being a Templar herself, were to kill him in cold blood, would only mean treachery and betrayal of the Order, and this could mean Elise would be hunted down for the rest of her life. All this really didn't matter to Elise, as all she cared about was avenging her father, and she was ready to give up anything for it. But on hearing the pathetic state Arno was in, she took pity on him. After all, she did love him, and seeing him wasted did make her sad. She also knew without the help of Arno she could not get close enough to killing Germain. With Arno now up and running, the both of them decided to attack Germain's inner circle. Yup, Maximilien Robespierre. For that guy, it was a disaster. One moment he was public's favorite, and after Arno and Elise, became a public nuisance. Robespierre was arrested and to be tried and executed by the revolutionaries. Thomas Germain, in a frantic attempt to keep the last of his order together, attacks the convoy that held Robespierre captured. Germain secures Robespierre in his heavily guarded palace. But for Arno and Elise, breaking in was child's play. Blowing up half of Robespierre's face, Elise makes him write down where Thomas Germain's location was.
The temple. I should have known. I hope you enjoy revolutionary justice, monsieur.
Well, we all know what happens next. Was it her inherited rage and fire from her mother, or the thirst for revenge that brought her to this point? Because according to me, she had no desire for any pieces of Eden, or any grand ambition for wealth. Despite her flaws, she was simple, kind, and yet noble in heart. All she ever wanted to do was make her world a better place, and the fact that this, and so much more, was taken away from her, enraged her. This clouded her judgment to the point that when she had to choose between life or death for a revenge, she chose death. And on the night of July 28, 1794, the great Templar, Elise de Serre, died. A week after Elise's death, Rudolph comes to Arno, bringing letters Elise wrote for Arno. In the letters, she described that she absolved Mr. Rudolph of all crimes, and taking pity on him, she even directed Rudolph to a place where he could find more letters. by which using those he could join back with the assassins. For Arno, she described her love for him and that he is to possess all her journals from Mr. Weatherall, who at the time was at Mansion Royale. Arno, arriving at Mansion Royale, sees Elise's second life for the first time. He sees Jacques and Helene together and also feels a very homely feel to everything. Mr. Weatherall hands over Elise's journals, the sword her mother first gave her, and Haytham Kenway's letters. Oh yeah, Elise had outsmarted Mr. Corot by giving him Arno's love letters instead of Haytham Kenway's letters, so the concept of the assassins and the Templars working together was still alive. And right then, Rudolph comes in, innocently asking for the letters Elise wanted to give him. But Mr. Weatherall, having a slight suspicion, taunts him about why he needed the letters when he had no intention in joining back with the assassins. Then suddenly Rudolph draws out his pistol and takes Helene hostage, revealing that he was only here to collect bounty the Carols imposed on them. He declared the hit stated that Elise, Mr. Weatherall, and Helene were to be killed, and that he needed the letters as proof to show to the Carols that Elise was really dead. But unfortunately for stinky Mr. Rudolph, he came to a swift end, with Elise's small sword pierced through his head, as Mr. Weatherall was now an expert knife thrower. As for Arno, he would continue living with Mr. Weatherall, Helene and Jacques for the rest of his days as an assassin, but also away from the assassin brotherhood. Arno later reads Elise's journal and finds her final letter. In the letter, she described her final wish. She wanted Arno to use Haytham Kenway's letters as proof that assassins and Templars could work together, and that just like her life with Arno, even though they were Templar and assassin, could work in unity. This concludes Assassin's Creed Unity, the story of Elise. Do leave a like and subscribe, as there are still character stories which are still untold, so be sure not to miss out on them by clicking on the bell icon. So till then, be awesome.